I only study if I have exams. Like everything else is just Makistry. Like school is kind of like a side hustle now. It's mostly Makistry is like the first hustle.
So I saw on LinkedIn, you were speaking to a group of UT Austin entrepreneurs, and you gave them kind of 3 takeaways of what you've learned at Makistry, and giving them some tips. So I want to run you through those 3, and please give us your thoughts on each of them. So first, you said, just take the first step. You're never really ready.
That was the same for me. Like growing up, I always had these ideas and things that I wanted to do from like a startup point of view, because like my family is super entrepreneurial. Like the main kind of thing with startups was my grandfather. He started his own business after he retired. When he was like 65, he just took the first step, started his own business, which is like pretty unheard of, right? After you retire, you're starting your own thing, kind of doing something new, learning something new. So that was around the time when I was like 1 or 2. And he continued growing it like while I was growing up. So I was like always around him, going to his factory, like seeing that he's working on something new every day. So that was kind of that entrepreneurial side was just in me since like growing up. And I always had these ideas. Like I would look at things around me and I would be like, I can make this better. I can build something new. And I always kind of stopped myself from doing it because I was like, oh, I'm too young. There's always something that there's more things that I could know, something else I should know before I actually start something, because I hate to lose. And like, that was always like a thing in the back of my head. I was like, the fear of failure kind of held me back. I was like, maybe I should know something more. I should get more experience before I actually dive into building something. But then with Makistry, the idea hit me and I was like, I'm going to do it. Like I'm in college, like this is the perfect time to start. And I just took the first step. And as soon as I bought the domain, I was like, okay, this is pretty real now. Like I spent real money on this. So I just have to do it now.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the second one was learn fast and adapt. Failure is part of the process. That kind of ties into what you're saying.
Yeah. Like the summer that I spent building this, it was so much failure. Like I had to keep learning, keep adapting, and like the imposter syndrome thing. Like I'm in calls with like CEOs who are like thrice my age, and they're talking about strategy and stuff, and I'm like, yeah, that's true. No, but like I had to kind of keep adapting, look at the situation that's in front of me, and then just kind of figure out what I have to do, what I have to say, what I have to kind of, I don't like to say it, but like what mask I need to put on for that specific situation, and kind of adapt to it, and try to make the best of it. So you just have to keep learning, and like failure is part of the process. Like there's been a bunch of calls where I just like blanked out and I didn't know what to say. And I was just sitting there like, yeah, this is our plan. This is what Makistry is. And like nothing really came out of it, right? So it was always kind of trying to do your best and then just learning, failing, learning, and then adapting and then doing it again.
It's kind of like you were saying to the first point. If you never actually start the first time, well, you've already failed. Like exactly, you won't have the chance to succeed. So giving it a shot at least gives you a shot of succeeding.
Yeah. So. And like, what's the worst that can happen, right? You always learn something even if you fail. And like we're talking about college builders, right? Student founders. What's the worst that can happen? Like you fail and then you just go and get a job. That's like the worst that can happen. So you always have the chance to try. And if you try, then something really good could come out of it. Or even if it's the worst case, then you're learning something and that can be applied to anything in life.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the last one, you said, do hard things and embrace the suck.
Yeah, that's my favorite one. That's like, that's how I'm trying to like run my life recently, like trying to build my routine around doing hard things. So first thing I do when I wake up is like take a cold shower, because that's like the thing that I hate the most. And if you start with that, then you're already like setting yourself up for doing hard things throughout the day. And there's this curve that when I was in Texas Momentum, this guy came to give us a talk. He was also a founder. And he showed us this graph, which is like, it stays flat for a very long time and then it like grows exponentially. And he was like, the part that's flat is like the hardest part, where you're like failing continuously, you're learning, you're adapting, it's the suckiest part of the journey. And that's when you're kind of learning the most. And that's what sets you up for the success that comes later on. So I I really resonated with that because I knew that I was in that part where it's like really bad, and like I'm waking up every day. I'm like, why am I doing this? But I'm doing it anyway. So that's kind of where the embrace the suck came out of. Like if you kind of become comfortable with being uncomfortable, then like you start embracing the suck. You start doing hard things, and that's where like the reward comes. Like the reward is after doing those hard things.
Yeah, I think that graph you're talking about is the 1% every day graph. Like
Yeah, yeah,
1% over a week doesn't do much, over a month doesn't do much, over a year doesn't do much. But
yeah.
when you get far enough along, it goes skyrockets.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
Parth, you're the founder of Makistry. Tell us where the idea came from. What were you doing? And then what problem are you solving?
Yeah. So the idea for Makistry came while I was in a class, actually. So I was in an intro to design class at UT Austin, and we had to build a battle robot from scratch. Everything from kind of designing the whole thing, manufacturing it, assembling it, running simulations on it, designing, iterating, stuff like that. And what ended up happening for our team and most of the other teams that were in our class was that out of the 12 weeks that we had that semester, most of the team spent around 8 or 10 weeks just working on designs, working on CAD models, creating CAD models, running simulations, seeing how it performs in those simulations, and then kind of iterating on those CAD models. So 8 to 10 weeks was just around CAD. And during that time we also had to like go through the SolidWorks learning modules, kind of learn how CAD actually works and how to work with the software. And that's where I was super bored. I was like, this is way too boring, this takes too long to do. And I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this, because I don't want to be spending so much time on CAD. I want to be thinking about new ways that I could design or innovative ways that I could approach and solve the problem, right? So that's kind of where Makistry started. That's when like the idea clicked that I have to find a better way to do this, because as a mechanical engineer, I knew I was going to be working with CAD and design, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like I have to find a better way to kind of make CAD easier and faster.
Yeah,
So that's kind of where the idea came from, and I spent the rest of that semester kind of doing a lot of research, doing a lot of learning, seeing what's out there in terms of tools that try to make CAD faster and easier. And at that time, there weren't a lot of AI tools that were in the CAD space. Most of them were kind of AI mesh tools, which were creating meshes which aren't usable in real workflows. Like you can't import them into anything else. Like they look really good, but they aren't really compatible with engineering workflows. So that's kind of where I saw the gap, and then I just started researching, started building something over the summer, and then yeah, that's kind of how Makistry started on its very root. Like it was frustration with CAD for me, and just trying to find a better way to do CAD.
certainly. And then from there, so this is over the summer, kind of prototyping, trying to figure out how to integrate the AI into the CAD software.
Mm.
Where does the Texas Momentum Accelerator come into play?
Yeah, I so the semester before the summer, I kind of just did some research, trying to figure out what I could do, and kind of creating a plan for how the architecture would look and stuff like that. And I'm a self-taught programmer, so I didn't really know what I was doing. So it was a lot of learning for me as well. And obviously, AI really helps with that. Like right now, if I didn't have AI, it would probably take me years to learn and do and implement and execute. But with AI, like that shortens the time scale a lot. So once the summer came, I was actually doing an internship, and it was a little boring. So I was like, I might as well work on something that's more exciting, a problem that I actually want to solve. And I basically spent the summer doing a lot of learning, doing a lot of research, and started developing it, trying to make a working prototype out of the idea that I had. And by the end of the summer, I kind of had the like basic MVP done, where you could give it a text prompt or a text description of the design that you want to make, and it would basically create a parametric CAD model out of it, and give that to you and show that to you in like a UI kind of interface. And parametric CAD was actually a pretty hard problem, and something that was kind of being researched in academia and in a lot of industries. Like it wasn't a primary kind of thing in the AI CAD space. Most of them, as I said, were mesh tools. And parametric CAD was a really hard problem. So it was still being worked on and kind of being developed. There weren't a lot of tools that were out there. So it was a lot of kind of starting from scratch for a lot of things. And that's kind of where I decided to build everything from scratch instead of trying to kind of get APIs from somewhere else or building on someone else's interface. I started to build from scratch because I it was a lot of learning for me. So it was just kind of starting from scratch. So I could kind of I didn't have a starting point that I had to kind of learn to or get to before I started building.
Mhm.
So by the end of the summer, I kind of had a working prototype, had an MVP, and then once the semester started, that's when I kind of applied to Momentum because I knew that I wouldn't have as much time as I did over the summer. And I applied to Momentum. They accepted me, and um, they basically like connect you with students who are at UT who are also entrepreneurial, who are also talented across like CS, engineering, growth, marketing, stuff like that. And yeah, from them we got a team of 4 or 5 engineers who kind of joined the team, started building new features, new functionalities, and kind of turning that prototype into a full-fledged web app that we launched as our beta in October.
Awesome. And then where you're at now, you were telling us before, you've obviously launched beta in October. Since then, you've piloted in 4 different makerspaces across the country, including UCLA and then other universities and college campuses. You
Mhm.
have 3 enterprise deals, I believe you said, with automotive and engineering design firms,
Yeah, automotive, yeah, manufacturing, yeah.
and then over 300 users and 7,000 designs have been made on Makistry. So
Mhm.
a long way in just less than a year, which is extremely
Yeah,
exciting.
yeah,
Tell, describe what a typical day looks like for you working on Makistry, and what are you working on?
yeah. A typical day usually I'll tell you about what a school day looks like for me because that's like the most typical day for me. So I try to wake up around 6:37 ish. Try to get my 8 hours of sleep because like if I don't get that, I'm a zombie all day and I wouldn't get anything done. So I always have to get that 8 hours of sleep. So I try to wake up kind of early. Um, then take a shower, do some work on Makestry before I go to classes. And I've kind of scheduled my classes to be in the afternoon section and like smushed together so that I can just go out, get everything done, and then come back and work on Makestry again. But I wake up, kind of work on Makestry for an hour or two. It's usually what I do kind of depends on where we're at in terms of timeline and the projects that we have planned for our roadmap. It's mostly kind of working on the web app and also like the enterprise deals that I was talking about. It's kind of building something, building towards a goal that I had set earlier in the week. I try to plan what I want to do over the week, like during the weekend, and kind of have a plan for things that I want to achieve over the week. And it's kind of just building towards that goal over the week, and then yeah, working on Makestry, then going to classes, coming back from classes, um, do some homework if I have to. Like recently, it's been I only study if I have exams. Like everything else is just Makestry. Like school is kind of like a side hustle now. It's mostly Makestry is like the first hustle,
Yep.
um, but yeah, it's usually coming back from classes, probably having lunch, and then either working on Makestry or getting some homework done. And then I play squash for the UT team. So in the evening, it's usually playing squash or working out or something. And then come back, have dinner, and then work on Makestry or do homework, whatever is like the main priority that day. And then, yeah, going to sleep. It's a
Yeah.
pretty boring day in terms of like college student, but I think it's pretty fun also for me.
Oh, totally. I mean, maybe boring for other people, but when you love something that you're working on, it's never boring.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you have a team of 4 to 5 engineers. What are they doing, and how are you trying to lead them as a peer? Really, y'all are all
Mm.
students.
Yeah. Yeah, it was kind of a learning curve for me as well. Like some of them are older than me, some of them are younger than me, some of them are the same age. So like it's kind of like a relationship that I'm building with them more than like a professional kind of thing. It's more of this is our goal, this is a mission that we're trying to get to, and we all have to just work together to kind of get there. And it's through Makistry, so we're all working on things that are based on Makistry to kind of push in the direction that we kind of put our mind to. And like the first few months were pretty rough. Like I didn't know what I had to do in terms of leading them. Um, I I tried being super friendly, being super strict, and like none of them worked. It was just about I just realized that I had to be myself. Like if I'm working on something and I'm passionate about it, then I think that's gonna lead the way. And it's kind of um, like leading by example, kind of like if I'm spending hours and hours on building something and like helping them with their projects and stuff like that, then they're kind of gonna be motivated to do that as well and kind of um, push in the same direction as I am. And yeah, what they're working on is usually on new features that we're building and like doing a lot of research and development around that. Like the core platform and the core technology is something that I work on mostly. And the surrounding features that are gonna come out in a few weeks or months, that's what they work on because it's a lot of research and learning for them as well. And also kind of building stuff from scratch for me, at least from what my experience is, a lot easier than kind of getting starting from a starting point that's already built, because like you have to learn about what's going on and then build on top of it, which is actually a lot harder than just starting from scratch. Especially with the AI tools that are out there, if you have the idea and the logic behind what you're trying to build, then it's a lot easier to start from scratch. So they work on a lot of features that kind of start from scratch. They have the idea, like what I do is kind of give them a problem statement. Like this is what we're trying to get to, like what I hear from users, what I hear from the industry, like taking that in, creating a project around it, giving them a problem statement that they kind of have to build to. So it's a project for them as well. It's kind of something that they're building from scratch and they have ownership over it. So yeah, that's kind of what the other interns are working on and how I try to kind of give them the project and give them a problem statement and let them build on it.
That's interesting. So you're saying that with the way coding is working now, it's easier to make something completely separate from the whole Makistry setup that's already running. Make a tool
Uh,
separate, and then you'll have some knowledge of how it'll plug in, but make that work and then plug it in afterwards.
yeah, that's what I've found is actually a lot better in terms of not just in terms of like building it, but also in terms of what you can do with it. If you're not restricted to like something that's already built, then you can kind of wander onto different things or push new frontiers, right? Kind of be more innovative with it and try new things and experiment with things that like you're not restricted to something that's already built. You're kind of just trying new things, experimenting with new things, and then once it's built and once it's working to the best that it can be, then you can work on integrating and kind of putting it back into the core technology that you have.
Certainly, that makes a lot of sense. So, what about your business model? Obviously, you're doing these partnerships with universities and some enterprise deals. How are
Mhm.
those structured? What do those conversations look like?
Yeah. So there's multiple things in Makistry as well as to how we're distributing the technology. One is completely B2C. So the web app that we have online, it's kind of like a freemium model. So there's a free tier for you to try. There's obviously limitations on it as to how much you can use and stuff like that. So there's a free tier, there's a plus tier, and there's a pro tier. It's pretty cheap compared to other tools that are out there. It's $10 a month for plus and 25 for pro. And for the B2B side, or like the B2B to C, like business to business and then to consumer, like with makerspaces and universities, it's mostly through licenses. So we kind of, for makerspaces especially, it's like a makerspace license. So we kind of give them Makerstry as a tool that they can offer to their users, to kind of help their users make their design processes and workflows faster, easier, and smarter. And with the B2B deals, we're still kind of exploring what the best way to do it is, but we're mostly working on new technology for them. It's kind of using the AI CAD engine that we have to kind of um, specialize it or adapt it to their specific workflows. If it's manufacturing, then it's around creating fixtures and stuff like that. If it's automotive, then it's working with assemblies more and stuff like that. So it's kind of using the core technology that we have with the parametric AI CAD engine, and then applying it to different use cases, and seeing what business case or business model fits best for that specific use case.
Sure. So do you spend most of your time on those relationships or on the actual product?
On the actual product, ideally, I would like to spend more time on kind of outreach, marketing, um, kind of setting the whole plan and strategy. But as a startup and as a student founder, because our team is pretty small so far, it's kind of mostly on the product and development, and kind of ensuring that what we're putting out there is the best that it can be in terms of industry standards and the standards that we set for ourselves, right? Um, so yeah, it's mostly on development, but I think over time, as we continue to expand and continue to grow the team, it's gonna transition into more in the building relationships and kind of outreach and stuff like that. And I think automation actually is gonna help with that. Like I'm experimenting with a lot of things around like automating outreach, automating marketing, and kind of creating those LinkedIn posts and stuff like that using AI tools that are out there. Um, it's still I haven't found the right balance for it yet, but that's kind of the way that I see things heading. It's kind of automating those tasks that are not completely essential. Like relationship building is obviously super essential, so that's something that has to be really personal. But things like sending out emails and like doing outreach, kind of community engagement and stuff like that. That stuff can be automated, and even internally, like doing a lot of HR stuff, like documentation stuff. That I think that can be automated, and that kind of takes the burden off like founders or like even people who are working on startups, and kind of helps them focus on the more essential tasks.
Yeah. What tools are you using for that?
It's mostly using Anthropic tools like Claude and stuff like that. And the orchestration is kind of just logic with like coding stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like you have a pretty good background with code, but it sounds like you also leverage AI a lot in using it. I've heard
Mm,
recently that in the last 6 months or so, AI has gotten so much better to the point where you almost don't even need to have any technical knowledge. Has that
yeah.
been what you've seen in your experience?
Um, no, I think
Mm.
if you're using AI blindly with developing something that you're actually gonna put like ship and give to users, it could be disastrous. Like it could work in the short term, but I think in the long term, it's going to pose problems because if you can't understand what it's writing, then it's going to lead to problems because it might not be the most efficient way to do it. It might not be the kind of most robust way to kind of solve a problem, right? You could get it to work for some use cases, but to be able to generalize that for a lot of use cases and for like the things that users can give it, especially for AI tools, it could turn into a real problem. For me, what the best way that I found is kind of taking a problem, thinking about it from first principles, right? What the problem is, and kind of creating a logic around it as to how you can solve it. So it's kind of you have to think about how you want to solve that problem, and like the logic behind solving that problem, and then you tell the AI to basically execute the strategy that you have created in your mind. So I think a lot of creativity and like logic based design thinking is still with us or with humans, and the more execution side is with the AI. And if you give the logic thinking to the AI as well, then it might there's obviously things that it could hallucinate and things that might not be optimized because it only has a certain amount of context, right? So if it doesn't have complete context and the information that you would have as a person, then it might not be the most complete solution, and
Mhm.
that could kind of propagate and keep growing as you kind of keep developing and ship the product to users.
So I think what I'm hearing is jobs like HR or tasks like HR or automated outreach or things like that are something that will totally be at least a majority done by AI because it's more efficient. But the
Mm.
the artistry, the creativity
Yeah.
in actually designing something is it can't be fully handed over.
Yeah, I think problem solving is something that cannot be completely handed over. Like if you're working on essential problems, and you're kind of creating something new and being creative about it, and like working with artistry, right? Then I think that cannot be automated, at least yet. It could be to a certain degree. Like the execution part could be automated, and like it could help with brainstorming different ideas and doing a lot of research around it. But I think the core logic that actually drives the solution would have to be human in some way.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's interesting hearing all the doomsday thoughts around AI, which I certainly agree. Like there will be lots of change in the world, especially when once robots are able to be really quality and perform tasks like a human does. But I mean, just like the car or the TV, like it's not gonna completely destroy the world to the extent that I think some people might be predicting. So
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, it's a complicated question. I think there's like multiple facets to it. There's obviously going to be some job loss, like in terms of menial things that people do, like not menial, but like things that don't require a lot of problem solving or things that don't require pushing the frontier, doing new things. Um, I think that could be automated, like driving and things like that. They're kind of predictable in nature. Like there's only a finite number of things that you can do with it. It's not really pushing the frontier of innovation. Like nothing, there's nothing logic based to it. So I think those kind of tasks could be automated to a certain degree. But the more things that you kind of get into the creative side, where you're building something new or you're solving a new problem, I think those things would still be around.
yeah, that kind of excites me. I think a lot of people have some friends who graduated and are kind of just doing the number punching
Mhm.
or like you said, kind of menial tasks somewhere. And they feel like, yeah, I just get through the day and it's like, I don't know where the hours went. And I look forward to the
Yeah.
weekend, but the week, like, I think if we were all able to be doing something that really takes a lot of brain power and you're
Mhm.
solving complex problems that are exciting to you, if
Mhm.
AI is able to help us do that, I think that would be an amazing outcome for it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that also leads to the fact that if you're doing something that you truly enjoy and you're actually doing something you're passionate about and creating something new around it, and that could be in the building on the technology side, but also like with creative tasks, like if you're making music or you're kind of playing a sport or you're um, painting or something like that. I think those tasks where you're creating something new and kind of doing something that you're passionate about, I think those tasks could also be pretty not safe, but they would be. Um, I think they would add more value to society down the road.
Yeah, I agree. So one connection I think I've drawn, I believe you're our 33rd guest, maybe
Mm.
34th. And I think one connection I've drawn between a lot of y'all is that you all like doing a lot of different things. So obviously you're a double major with mechanical engineering and economics,
Mhm.
and you have a startup. And then like you said, you're on the squash team. We've talked about you enjoy playing guitar and music and singing. Why do you do all of those different things? What obviously you enjoy them, but is there any
Yeah.
other deeper purpose or interest behind that?
Uh, that's a great question, actually. Um, I guess it's more to do with, like, for me, I like put things into buckets. It's kind of, so one thing is like it's kind of priorities for me. So like one bucket is school, and that's like doing school stuff, like studying, building towards exams, like doing research. Like I did a lot of research with a lot of labs at UT during my first year. It was around joining clubs, organizations, stuff like that. And the other is um, like music and squash, which I think of as more as hobbies. And I like doing it. That's why I do it. Like if I didn't enjoy it, then there wouldn't be point of doing it. So I like playing squash. I like competing and like winning. So I like that's kind of why I do that. Music for me is more of like a um, it's kind of philosophical, but it's more of like a way to kind of express my thoughts and emotions in terms of the best way that I can. It was through music, and it's kind of detaching myself from reality for a little bit. That's kind of romantic, but that's how I think about it, and that's how I feel about it. And Makistry is obviously something that's recently been added to the buckets that I have, and it's kind of become the main thing for me recently. And the priority for these buckets like keep changing. So maybe if exams are coming up, or finals are coming up, then the school bucket like becomes more important for me. If I'm just trying to have fun, then the squash and music and hobbies thing becomes more heavy for me. And then if I'm like everyday life, Makistry is the most important for me. So guess I do it because like it adds different things or like makes my day more exciting for me. Like if I'm looking forward to playing squash in the evening, then like I'm looking forward to it the entire day. And it kind of if and it's called also kind of like a reward system for me. So like if I enjoy playing squash and like I'm gonna do that in the evening, then I'm like, oh, I might as well like do my homework now so I can go play squash later. So it's like, well, let me finish my homework right now and like I just get it done in like an hour or two.
Yeah,
So it's kind of like a reward system as well, I guess.
100%. That reinforces a thought that Wes and I have talked about a lot. Um, you always hear the term work-life balance and how you're supposed to have 50% of your life be work, and like I don't think that is how it works. And to what
Mm,
you just said, like you have these buckets of things that you enjoy, need, and want to do. And depending on the season that you're in, whether that
mm,
season is a year long thing or a weekly thing where you just have all of your classes giving you exams, like
yeah,
those buckets and the proportion that you're doing in each one of them changes. And I think that's
yeah,
a misconception of the work life balance.
yeah, yeah. It's all about phases. Like one of my favorite cricket players. Like I'm from India, so like cricket is like my main thing. And one of my favorite cricket players, his name is Virat Kohli. He's like the most famous cricket player in the world. He in one of his interviews, I don't know why I remember this, but it just came to me right now. He said that you have to respect the phases in your life. So every kind of phase in your life has a different purpose, like different things that you kind of have to prioritize for that phase. And for me right now, those phases would probably be kind of working on my startup and then school. Those are like the two main things in my phase right now. And those are the things I have to prioritize. And if my social life kind of goes to hell right now, that's fine. It's kind of prioritizing the things that I want to prioritize based on the phase that I'm in and embracing the suck, right? If I like the social part of it, like obviously I like social parts, so like I like my friends, I like hanging out, but I kind of had to sacrifice that to be able to embrace the suck of it right now and kind of respect the phase as it is right now and kind of get this phase done before I can go to the other one and kind of do the things that I need to do for that phase. So I don't know, that just came to mind right now. I think that's a pretty um like good way to think about it, right? If you're kind of having a hard time or you're having a great time, it's kind of in that phase and that phase could change and you just have to prioritize what's in front of you and adapt and learn and keep going.
Yeah. I get the feeling that a lot of people who might have an interesting idea for a startup, but aren't yet taking their first step, a lot of them might be concerned that they are going to lose their social life or
Mm,
they won't be able to enjoy playing squash and guitar on the weekends
mm,
and that their whole life will just devolve into work.
mm.
What would you tell that person?
Mm, I think it comes back to the phases, right? It's all about priorities, and for some people, like this wouldn't be something that they could do. Like it's pretty hard. Like honestly, like it seems all shiny on the outside and blueberries and butterflies, but it's not that easy. It's always kind of deciding between two things and thinking about the opportunity cost for that decision. So, like if I'm spending the weekends working on Makistry, like the whole day, it's kind of choosing between that or maybe hanging out with my friends or going to watch the football game at UT or something like that. And it's always making that choice between what your priority is in that moment. And it's pretty easy to make the easy choice. But if you want to do the hard things, I always keep coming back to those for some reason. But if you want to do the hard things, then you kind of have to choose the thing that you have to in that moment and the priorities that you've set for yourself. And it might not be the right time for you, or maybe it's the perfect time for you, and you're just not taking the first step. And like if you just take the first step, then it kind of helps you get more clarity in your mind as well. Like before I started Makistry, like I didn't have a lot of like conviction or like perseverance or anything like that. It was just taking that first step and diving into it. Um, and like it's not about being special. Like there's no one who's like talented in the startup sense, right? It's all about taking that first step, and then like you get more clarity as you go, and you just make choices as you go. And some things might work out, some things might not be the best decision, and you just kind of stick with it and try to do the best you can and keep pushing. That's the only thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I do think what you said at the beginning is very relevant. It's not for everybody, and I don't want that to sound like people can't do it, because anyone can
Yeah.
be an entrepreneur and figure out and embrace the suck, right?
Yeah.
But some people might not want to, and that's perfectly fine. But if you want to, the time to start is now, because like you said, worst case, you fail, go get a job, and have plenty of time on the weekends to go enjoy yourself. So
Yeah.
I think it's worth it to give it a shot. So we were talking earlier, and you're graduating somewhat soon. The plan for you would be to do this full time, but you've also mentioned that maybe this is just something that you enjoy on the side. So currently, where do you see Makistry in the next 5 years? Where do you want it to be, and what do you have to do to get it there?
Yeah, so I'm pretty far from graduating actually. I'm only my second year, and I'm halfway through. Um but where I see this going is the vision for Makistry, at least for me, is kind of creating a holistic AI native design platform that kind of right now it's kind of focused on the CAD segment of it. But I think what I want to get to is kind of creating a AI native holistic kind of tool. So you can go from idea to brainstorming that idea to creating the CAD model for it, running simulations on it, doing analysis on it, kind of iterating on the CAD model as you go, doing computer aided manufacturing on it, which is another pretty exciting segment that AI could kind of help with. And then kind of coming out with a physical, tangible part or like a prototype for a part. That's kind of where I see Makistry headed pretty soon. It's kind of it, most AI companies in the design and manufacturing space are kind of based in silos right now. So someone is only working on manufacturing, someone is only working on simulation, someone is only working on CAD. But I think where the most um, impact could be is bringing all of them together and challenging the big players that are out there right now. So the big players like Autodesk, SolidWorks, Onshape, all of these kind of big tools. The thing that's unique with them is that they've been able to kind of create an environment or ecosystem where all of these things are connected. So in SolidWorks, you can create the design, you can run simulations on it, and then you can connect it to a manufacturing tool. Like you can create tool paths for it, you can have a 3D printer slicer on it, and then you come out with something that you can kind of give to a manufacturer and they can actually produce the part for you.
Yeah.
So I think the power in that is that it's all connected and you can do it in a single platform, and it's obviously really powerful. You can do a lot of things with it. And with Makistry, I think that's where like Makistry would be, or AI can have the most value, is kind of streamlining the entire value chain instead of just focusing on one part, and kind of creating the whole thing more intuitive, more accessible, and more um, kind of efficient for the users and for engineers and for makers, for students. Basically, kind of lowering the barrier for CAD or for design and manufacturing, while still raising the barrier for innovation. Because if it's more streamlined and it's much faster than existing kind of manual interfaces, then you'll be able to kind of do more designs, experiment with new things, and explore new ideas, and you can do that way faster. So what that would allow users to do is kind of go through the whole design process a lot faster and try new designs out. And that's kind of coming back to the reason that I started this. That was to not spend a lot of time on CAD. It's kind of thinking about new ways to solve a problem or different ways that you can approach and solve the problem, right? So if the whole value chain is more streamlined and more intuitive, then anyone can anyone who has an idea can kind of jump onto Makistry, run through the whole pipeline really fast, see if the design will actually work or not, if it's possible or not, and then kind of come out with a prototype. And this is something that I think I've seen with a lot of AI software, right? Replit and Lovable and all of these tools, what they're doing is kind of lowering the barrier to entry for software and creating code, and kind of allowing non-software engineers to also create websites and create web apps and stuff like that. So I think where Makers would be able to add the most value is replicating that kind of thing for hardware as well, and creating the whole kind of holistic platform that anyone can kind of come to and create their products and bring their ideas to life.
Sure. And do you see this being something that is for, like you said, the beginner or someone who's not as technical? Or do you see this being something that, like, an engineer at a huge high tech firm could use as well?
Yeah, I think today, where it's at, Makistry is at today, I think this would, I think today it would be best for the more casual makers because it's more, it's more intuitive in nature, and there's less control over how you design. But where we're headed and new features that we're working on right now, that will come out in a month or two, are trying to expand the control that we give to users and try to kind of expand it out to the more professional side of it as well. So I think in a month or two, this will be as useful for professional engineers and designers as it would be for the more casual makers like hobbyists and students and beginners. So that's what I was talking about, like lowering the barrier to entry while still raising the bar for innovation. That's kind of our driving force.
Absolutely. I see a ton of opportunity with schools, education programs, getting people to learn because, I mean, just like Wes and I, and like we were all talking about earlier, you get on to a CAD software and it's like, whoa, where in the world do I start? So I really like y'all's platform and how it works. Before I ask our final question, I want to bring up one more LinkedIn post that I found from you. So you quoted Richard Feynman, who I believe is a famous physicist.
Yeah.
And he said, there are no miracle people. So why did that resonate with you as a founder?
Yeah. I think that resonated with me because like I'm a normal guy. Like there's nothing special about me. And there's also nothing special about anyone else that you see being super successful. You aren't born with talent, right? It's all about working towards it. And the harder you work towards it, the more smartly you work towards something. And if you have a plan in mind or something that you're kind of working towards, then I think you can become anything. And in the lecture that he talked about this, Richard Feynman, there's like this famous lecture series by him where he like just sits on a couch and he like talks about different things for like an hour or two. And it's super fun. Like he talks about scientific principles, like it's from a super first principles level. So like he explains everything from like how atoms move to like what elasticity is, and it's like super interesting and also really easy to understand when he talks about it because it's like breaking everything down into first principles. And what he says in the end is like there's no miracle people. Like he was just a normal guy and he just studied really hard and he spent a lot of time working on something that he liked and something he was passionate about, and he was able to get to a point where these scientific concepts were super easy for him to just visualize in his head. It wasn't about kind of writing down proofs or like working through theoretical kind of manuals or something. It was just things that he thought about really hard, and he was able to visualize it in his head, and then he kind of started working on theoretical things, and that's what made him a really good physicist, because there's abstract concepts that you can't really prove in terms of theoretical things, but you can kind of visualize them and just be creative about it. And the reason he was able to do that was because he studied really hard and he just worked hard towards something that he was passionate about. So I think that's where that idea came from. It's all about kind of doing hard things, embracing the suck, and then just trying to get to a point where you are what you want to be, or like you're doing things that you want to do. And yesterday I saw like a Matthew McConaughey Oscar speech that he gave when he won the Oscar, and it was like my someone asked him like, who's your hero, and he was like, my hero is the person, like, is myself 10 years away, 10 years 10 years from today.
Yeah.
And then someone asked him 10 years after, he was like, my hero is is myself 10 years from now. And it's always about trying to get better and trying to keep working hard to kind of make yourself better and stuff like that. So I think that's where it kind of came from. And there's actually no miracle people. It's always normal people who kind of work hard towards something and just get it done.
Yeah, and I love the tie-in with everything we said in the beginning about embracing the suck, doing hard things. It all ties into everything you're thinking. So I love that. Is there anything we missed? Is there anything about Makistry or yourself that you think would be interesting to talk about?
I think what would be interesting is like where we're headed. Because we're still in beta, and we've kind of got some traction from users and from makers, but where we're headed is super interesting. Because we're not just restricting ourselves to the AI CAD kind of environment that's out there today. We're kind of expanding out to different things. Like we're working on things like image to CAD. We're working on things like having a manual interface along with the AI interface to kind of give more control to users and kind of expand into the professional side of it as well. And these things are pretty hard things to solve, especially with a small team. And like these incumbents have like thousands of people in their teams, but they're still kind of working on the more safer aspects of AI. But what I think startups and especially student founders have the opportunity to do is kind of do hard things and like do things that others aren't able to do right now. And having the ability to take the risk. And that's something that we're kind of embracing. It's about doing something that other people are not trying to do because it's too risky and it might be too hard and they're spending a lot of money on it. But for us, it's kind of, we have the opportunities around us, like with the college campuses and with the resources that we have around us. I think we have the opportunity to kind of try new things, try things that seem really hard, and just keep learning and keep adapting and try to do things that are new and innovative and keep pushing the frontier forward. Um, yeah, so we're working on a lot of research and development around parametric AI CAD and also trying to create a completely new design interface that does what I was talking about with Makistry. It's kind of lowering the barrier to entry for users. So let's say a Wes was trying to learn how to CAD, but it was pretty hard because like he came in and he saw like a million buttons everywhere and he just didn't know where to start. And he had to go through probably like a learning module or watch a video or something like that. But if you can lower the barrier to entry, then if you have an idea, you can just jump onto Makistry, bring that to life, and kind of give it to a manufacturer, actually see it in front of you, tangible. And I think that's really powerful because anyone can have an idea, right? It's all about kind of executing that idea and bringing it to life. And that's what Makistry kind of allows you to do. It's kind of, if you have an idea, you can brainstorm it, you can create a design around it, and then you come up with something that you can actually use. So that's where we're headed. And there's a lot of exciting things that are coming up in a month or two. So stay tuned for that, I guess.
Absolutely. We can't wait to see. Well, Parth, our last question that we ask every guest is what advice would you give to your freshman yourself? I know that's not too long ago, but what would you tell someone who's a freshman and maybe is still not certain if they should take a first step? What should they do? What should they think? How should they act?
Yeah. From an entrepreneur's point of view, like if you're really passionate about kind of building a startup and contributing to a society through an innovative lens where you're creating new technology and kind of trying to push the frontier forward, like in terms of innovation and building something new, I think the first thing would be to identify a problem that you're really passionate about and kind of thinking about why you want to do it. That's something that I'm still trying to figure out, is like why I'm doing this. And it's really hard to put your finger on it because once you start thinking about it, there's like so many ways that could go because there's like so many reasons to do something, right? And if you're not able to identify something, or if you don't have a clear purpose behind doing this, I think it's really hard to sustain kind of the grind of it, because it's obviously really hard, and it's more of a psychological battle with yourself most of the time. It's like existential crises like every day coming up, and it's kind of just finding a purpose and keep pushing through it. And if you have a clear purpose, then it makes it a lot easier. And yeah, I would say to my freshman year self, I would say just obviously take the first step. It seems hard. It is hard, but it's not impossible, right? And if you kind of do hard things, not just in terms of building something new, but in everyday life, like if you're taking cold showers, you're pushing yourself in your workouts, and you're like eating healthy, sleeping well. These are obviously hard things to do as a college student. But if you're doing that, and you have a purpose behind doing that, and you kind of have a plan for what you're going to do and a problem that you truly care about and you want to solve, then just go for it. And yeah, embrace the journey that you're on, and just do it, and it'll all be good. Because like the best that can happen is like you become the next Mark Zuckerberg, and like the worst that can happen is you just keep going, right? You learn something new, and you try your next startup or the next idea that you have, or you get a job, and like that's honestly not that bad. So just give it a shot and try it out.
Yeah, absolutely. That's amazing. Well, Parth, thank you very much. Where can people find Makistry or contact you if they have any questions?
Yeah, so my LinkedIn is Parth Mehta. You can just search me up. Or for Makistry, you can find it on makistry.com, or makistry.ai is our web app. Either of those will get you to approximately the same place. And yeah, you can find us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on YouTube, and yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you.